what's your take on all the DEI and as this code for get rid of all the darkies?
Well, what is it? Diversity, inclusion, and
Equity or something like that. Yes.
Something like that.
I'll flash that too because I can do that.
Yeah. So the interesting point about DEI is that the number one recipient on DEI policies
White women.
are white women.
About 50%.
No, it's something like it's something over 60%. But okay. Hey, we'll give them 50%. That's fine. And then it's I think it's something like either Native Americans, and then it's Hispanics or Latin Americans, but blacks are at the bottom.
Right. We about 4%.
Yeah. We don't. DEI never worked. I mean, it was always code that, hey, we're gonna help these niggas, but it was, we gonna help everybody else but the niggas.
Right.
So
we'll have a couple token ones here and there.
Yeah,
4%.
Yeah, of course. You have to do that. We have to be upfront on certain issues. DEI is one of them. Affirmative action is another one that doesn't work for black people because black people are at the bottom when it comes to affirmative action.
Right.
Of course, white women are the number one
recipients
of for affirmative action. But they don't, the media would never let you know that. Another statistic that they always, never, and I know we're getting off point here, that they never tell you about.
Oh, we're totally on point.
SNAP benefits. The number one recipient of SNAP benefits in this country, first are Native Americans.
Okay.
Secondly, whites. Third, Latinos. Fourth, African American or black. So
right. Yet they always try to paint the blacks as the welfare kings and queens or whatever.
Yeah, because that's the narrative that they want to sell you. Just like another narrative, right? When you think about it, who's been pushing all this, transgender LBQG shit?
LMNOP? I don't know who.
Yeah, it's been white people, right? But black people and brown people have been the face of that shit because guess what? They say, oh shit, then hey, that's more acceptable because those guys are, they're muscular and big, and hyper aggressive and shit. Right. So, if they can be that way, then, but and they push that shit on us and we become the face of it, but that was their, ultimate goal,
Interesting. Okay.
I know it sounds crazy, but
But hey, you know what? I'm all about various points of view. Yeah. That's what we do.
It's only acceptable, really, when black men in this country do it. When black men are in fucking drag, then it's fucking acceptable. Then they push that shit. When a brother do it, oh shit, hey, if they're doing it, hey, because they push that shit on us, then these motherfuckers rush in. And that shit ain't accepted in our community. You know that.
Right. Exactly.
Even though they try to push that shit,
right,
it's not.
Yeah, because most foundational Black Americans are very, very, very conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I probably done got myself in all types of trouble, but I don't give a fuck. Don't matter to me.
So you got a lot of. I've been watching a bunch of these videos. You got a lot of people who voted for 45 and 47 having buyer's remorse now.
Look,
like, cry me a fucking river.
I think I said this in a previous sometime that we talked before that. Hey, you know what? You just gotta let all the crazies and let it get out of our system. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we come through it. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna come through it, but I don't know how we're gonna come through
it. One way or another, we're gonna come through it, right?
Yeah, we're gonna come through it, but I don't know how we're gonna come through it. Right. What it's gonna look like at the end. But it ain't no such thing as buyer's remorse. That's what you want. You knew she was a hoe when you married her. I mean, you knew.
And now you're mad that she's out sleeping around.
You're mad. Because she's showing hoe tendencies.
Right. And sucking the neighbor's dick. But,
that's right. Hey, get over it. Suck it up.
Yep.
This is going to be a wild ride. I can't wait for this. It's just starting.
You got that right. It
just
is
start, baby.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think happens, during the midterms?
Well, that'll be interesting. I think. I think it's going to be like it's not going to be 50-50, but I think it's going to be enough where, they really put a halt to his plan because of what they're losing. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a fucking landslide, but it's going to be like, whoa, pump the brakes, pump the brakes, Elon. So Elon and shit.
Man, and so, that whole thing with Elon, and this kind of reminds me of this stand-up by George Carlin that I watched years ago. And I'm actually going to go play a segment of it here.
Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back. so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club.
It's a great bit, and I mean, it's too bad that guy isn't alive right now because he'd be having a field day with these politicians right now.